Hey, how's it going? Mike from LI Flies Mike, and as always, the full list of materials will be down in the description below. Today we're going to be using a Gamakatsu SL12S 2-aught big game hook, but you can use any sort of size hook you'd like as long as it's comparable to the size crab body you're using. Now today we're going to be using these EP crab bodies. If you can't find these, you can always get some pieces of felt and make them, or there's some other companies that offer crab bodies in felt, or you could make your own even if you could find the material. Main thing is we're going to be using a felt body as well as taking some chenille legs and tying a basic crab fly that you can use to imitate any sort of crab species. We're going to get started off here with these orange coated brass eyes. This is going to help turn the fly over, and this fly is designed to fish and sink, have some action to it with the dumbbell eyes. You could certainly tie this in a foam variation without the dumbbell eyes if you'd like, but we're going to tie this in a sinking variation with the felt crab body. All we need to do to secure this down is do some figure 8 ties, and then I like to wrap around the base of the dumbbell eye as well, just making certain that the dumbbell eye is nice and secured and isn't going to fall off if you bang it up against the boats or some rocks or something like that. And you can see the felt body that we're working with here. This is essentially a piece of felt that has been cut into the shape of a crab body. Next, what we could do is take our thread and wrap it all the way back towards the bend of the hook here. Now what I'm going to do is tie the crab body to the hook right at the very end of it. This EP crab body comes to a point. Now what you can do is just glue the crab body to the hook, and that's certainly a viable option using UV resin or something like that, or epoxy. But I'm actually going to tie it because I like having it secured, and we're going to use some UV resin later on when we're tying the fly. Now you can see EP sells these crab legs. These are made out of chenille or micro chenille, and you could certainly buy these if you like, and I've used them in the past, but once you learn how to make these, it's fairly simple to make them yourself. So all we're going to do is take some micro chenille, and I'm going to show you how to make a basic leg here. You just take the chenille and make a simple overhand knot, and then very lightly burn or singe the end or the tip of the crab leg. This is going to give you a nice tapered tip, and it's also going to secure the end of the chenille so it doesn't unravel. And pretty much to make a claw, all you need to do is take 2 pieces of material and tie them in a knot, do a simple overhand knot, and that's how you get your crab arm or your crab claw. So you can see here I'm making the crab claw and just burning the ends. So you could either take 2 pieces and tie them together, or just take a single piece, double it over itself, and do an overhand knot like that. So getting started here, we're actually going to just take a shorter piece of chenille. We're actually going to try and best imitate a lady crab, which is a particular type of crab species that's very common up here in the Northeast on the flats that striped bass like to eat. Of course, you can always change the colors to imitate any sort of crab species for any sort of game fish or any sort of fish species that you're trying to target. So for the lady crab here, we're going to try and best imitate its legs here. It has some legs that are kind of sticking off the front and angled back. So that's what we started off with, and then we're going with some larger legs off the back side. When I say front here, I'm considering the opposite side of what you're looking at the front. That's where we're going to be tying the eyes of the crab. So just taking some longer pieces of chenille starting off and tying these off towards the back and then wrapping them along the shank towards the front. It helps here to start off with your longer legs first and then go with the shorter legs on the inside. That's how the legs are kind of situated on these particular sorts of crabs. And it also makes it easier by having that longer material tied on the outside. Then you can work on the inside with the shorter pieces of chenille. So adding our chenille here, and then we're going to go ahead and take a short piece here. This will be the smaller legs that are on the lady crab sticking off the backside here. Gets a little tricky, you're going to have to weave your thread through all the chenille, but it's part of making this fly. So once you get your chenille all set up the way you like it, we're going to wait to put our crab claws on here. You can certainly do it at this point and then do the eyes, but I'm just going to make the eyes right now. We're going to take some 100-pound mono here, and just burn the ends of the 100-pound mono. You don't have to use 100-pound, you can use less. It's just much easier to get some nice crab eyes with it. By burning the ends of the mono and letting it melt, we can get these nice ball eyes to the mono by just burning the ends of it. And then just to add a little extra flair, the eyes generally are black on a crab. It could certainly vary between species, but I'm just going to take a little orange to start off and by the stem of the eyes here, just to give it a little color, and then I'll take a black Sharpie and add that to the tip of the eyes. Now, to ensure that the Sharpie isn't going to wear off, and also to try and get an even more exaggerated crab eye, I'm going to go ahead and take some UV resin here and just lightly coat the tip of the eyes here. This is going to give us a more exaggerated eye overall, and it's going to stop that Sharpie from wearing off over time. We'll just go ahead and take our UV light here, hit the eyes, make sure that you fully cure that resin so you're not going to have any issues when you're tying with it. And now you can see what we're kind of working with here. I'm just kind of lining up the eyes. I'm going to go ahead and take the eyes and cut it now. And by cutting it and then taking a pair of pliers and flattening the ends of the 100-pound mono, it makes it much easier to work with, or really any mono in general, by flattening it. You could use your Regal vise if you want, like I have, but I just had a pair of pliers, so it was much easier than taking the hook off the vise. And to tie these in, I'm just going to tie these at an angle, being certain to wrap on both sides of the mono to make sure that it's well secured. If you have an issue, you can work with it. You can manipulate the mono to where you like it, and then you can really secure it down. And I'm going to go ahead and do like figure 8 style wraps around the mono, just ensuring that it's going to be well secured. This is a really good fly to test your thread managing capabilities here, and being certain that you're able to control your thread in a certain manner. Being able to weave through all the chenille and through the mono, so it's a good test to your skills as a fly tyer, and it's certainly a lot of fun to tie. So now we could take our homemade crab claws here, and we're going to tie these in, and I like to tie these on the outside of the eyes. We're going to make certain that we secure it along the hook shank as well. So I'm going to line it up to where I like it, get the length of the crab claws to where I like it, and then I'm going to secure that chenille on top of the hook shank. And wrap past the eye on the left here, and then we can go ahead and secure that claw down. Take your time, you're going to have to work around the different claws and try not to wrap on top of the claw placement that you already worked on. But you can always undo it. You don't need a ton of thread wrapping here. You only need a couple wraps to secure this stuff, so don't overdo it as well. You can always unravel the thread and fix your mistakes if you need to. So once we get our thread forward here, we can kind of line up the crab body and see what it looks like, see if we're happy with it. Don't worry about the final placement of everything. You're going to be able to adjust this when you glue everything down. You can see I wanted that claw to sit a little bit more to the left, so all I did is just readjust it, and then I can go back and wrap forward. And now we can go ahead and secure down the front section of the shell, just with a couple nice tight thread wraps, not overdoing it so it's not too visible. So after throwing some whip finishes down here, we could take our scissors and cut this off. And now we can start really messing with the chenille and getting the placement where we like it. So it's easier if you take it and flip it over. That way you can really see where all the legs and the claws are situated, and you could take your time to adjust it to where you like it. And once we hit it with some UV resin, the claws aren't going anywhere. So you really want to make sure the placement is where you like it and it's final. And if you need to, you can always adjust the eyes. This is a good test to see if you've really secured them well or not, is adjusting these eyes, making sure they're sitting where you like it. So now I'm going to go ahead and take some medium UV resin here, some solar res, but you can use whatever sort of resin you'd like. I think a heavy or like a thick resin or a medium resin is probably best for this, but you could certainly use thin or flex. You could also use epoxy. The important thing is that this will also add some weight, so I would avoid using something like solar res or something like that. I think you want a heavier glue like a epoxy or UV resin for this. But it's very simple. We're just going to take the UV resin and coat the bottom here, being certain to coat around the chenille, but try not to let it get too close to the edge of the crab shell, if you will. That way we don't have too much of a rough surface around the outside edge. So just go around and spread that UV resin around, working slowly because we're going to add a couple coats if we need to. You don't have to do it all at once. And before hitting it with the light, we can just make sure the crab claws are where we like it, and the legs and everything, and once we get them to where we like it, we can go ahead and hit it with the light. I had to adjust the dumbbell eyes real quick because I forgot to check if the dumbbell eyes were perfectly even. That's something you should always do before you go ahead and hit it with the light as well. So after our first cure here, we're going to go ahead and add another coat of resin. So not only make the fly a lot more durable, but it'll also add more weight to help turn over the fly as well. That's something you need to be careful of is your chenille legs, or if you're using rubber legs, or the claws, if you're using the pre-made claws. If they're quite large, they might affect the way the fly swims and sinks. So you want to make sure you have enough weight on the belly to cause it to turn over. Once we get that UV resin cured, now we can start working on the length and the finish of these crab legs. Now what you could do is you could burn all of the crab claws and legs before you tie them on there. We did do the claws and a couple of the legs, but I find it's easier to just tie all the chenille on, and then you could always go and burn them after. You have to be careful not to burn the crab body itself, but we can essentially just cut the legs down to the length that we like, and then I could just take my lighter here and lightly singe the edge of the chenille, giving us that crab leg or claw finish. It's very important you don't expose the chenille too much to the flame because it'll actually catch on fire and start melting. That's not what we want. We just want to singe it and essentially just try and give us that nice tapered look, as well as securing down the chenille so it doesn't unravel. And that right there essentially is a finished EP body crab fly. But we're not going to stop there because crabs generally have some sort of natural camouflage, and the lady crab is no exception to that. It has a sort of dotted pattern that you see in a lot of crabs. So you can either take a brown Sharpie, I'm taking a black Sharpie here, and I'm just adding some random dotting to not only the crab body but the legs. And then not only that, but the lady crab has pretty vibrant colors in the legs at times. So I'm just going to color the tips of the claws orange here, just to give it some different contrast and color to the fly. What you find is bait fish, crabs, they're generally not one or two colors. They're generally a plethora of colors. That's in part how camouflage works for a lot of these species that get predated on a lot of times. And then after taking some head cement here, we're just going to coat the top threads by the crab shell, even though this entire body is very well secured with resin. Just nice to finish it off that way. And there we go. We have a finished EP lady crab fly. You can see the chenille that we essentially made ourselves, the chenille legs, just using a lighter, very simple, and using some Sharpie. And the shape of the shell here with the EP crab body. Now, I am interested in trying to make these bodies myself with some felt in the future. Well, let's go ahead and throw this in the swim tank here, and not using the pump because it's not really a pump fly. It's more of a aquarium fly, if you will, because this is the sort of fly that you're going to be fishing either on the flats, on the edges of flats, either blind casting it or sight fishing. And again, you could take this fly and change the colors. Don't think this is just a lady crab fly. This is a pattern that you can use to essentially imitate any sort of crab species you'd like. You can see here, this is a green crab variation that I tied using rubber legs because I didn't have chenille. and some pretty exaggerated crab claws. These are the larger EP crab claws that I bought a while ago. Well, there we go, the EP crab body using a felt body and some chenille legs. Very cool crab fly, and it's a way to kind of test your fly tying skills once you've gotten out of the basics and expanded your fly tying knowledge and different patterns and things like that. So fantastic fly for fishing on the flats, and again, not only for striped bass, but things like bonefish, permit, you name it, whatever sort of species that eats crabs, you could tie this fly and just imitate whatever sort of crabs they're predating on. Well, my name's Mike from LI Flies Mike. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much to our Twitch subs and our YouTube members. The support means a lot, and thank you to everyone here that watches the channel and uses their hypes and all that and likes the videos. It means a lot, and I wouldn't be doing it without you folks. Again, thank you so much for watching. We have new fly tying and fly fishing videos every week. We have live fly tying streams on Friday night and early access for members. Have a great season out there this year. Till next time, tight lines.